So materials, you're going to need about 19 inches of this 1/2 inch wide by maybe 1/8 of an inch. You're also going to need a 4 3/4 inch section of steel that is about the same thickness as your handles and double the width of your handles plus 0.25 inches. First, to draw the template onto this steel, wider steel that the blade is going to be made out of. So make a 1 1/4 inch square. Next, mark out half of that on the higher edge of the little square you just drew. Half of 1 1/4 inches 5/8. So draw that right there, and then go up 3 1/2 inches, just right there, and then draw a line across there. And then altogether that is 4 3/4 inches. And then in this area, draw out your comb. You can make it whatever shape you want. For this one, I'm gonna make mine a little bit basic. So I'll get back to you when that's done. Alright, next what we're going to do is go in. After those are marked out, you can punch either of these with a center punch. Now that these little center punches are, punched, do not cut this yet because it'll come in handy to have this extra steel here, so you can clamp it into the vise and then do the long and tedious process of using a hacksaw to cut in each of these lines. These lines I marked about 1/8 of an inch away from each other each time, just over and over again in this space. So I will start doing that now. Now I'm going to use a wire wheel on a drill just to get, in the edges in there, clean it up, round it out, and, just fix up the edge a lot. I don't know if that's cleaner, but it's a lot more smooth. To drill the alignment holes, which are the ones that actually have the pins that do not connect to the handle, then I'm going to be using a 5/32 inch drill bit, and this bolt that I'm using fits perfectly into that, so you can screw it in and it doesn't move, it doesn't fall out since it's screwed in there. And then for the joint pins, I'm going to be using like the tiniest a bit that is just a tiny bit bigger than the 5/32 inch bit. It fits in there almost perfectly and it's able to move freely inside there, so yeah. As you can see, the bolt does not push all the way through, you have to screw it in. And now for these two holes, I will drill it with this one first. Which is the drill bit that I just used to drill these two, and then widen it just the tiniest little bit with this one. Now, as you can see, this one does go all the way through and it moves freely. Now is the next long and arduous process of filing a triangular shape into each of these little teeth gaps. This is so, it fits into your hair better when you're combing it, and it just, makes it more of a comb. So the reason I have these only sticking out about, 1/8 of an inch is so that when I file them, they don't bend that way, getting caught in the file, because that's what would happen because they're so, just barely jointed on there. So if, a file were to go like that, it'd probably just bend it, and I don't want that to happen. So I have them clamped in with about 1/8 of an inch sticking out so that they're, a lot stronger. Now I'm going to round out these corners here and cut on that line. Now I'm going to cut the handle sections. I'm going to cut out 4 of these, and each of them is 1/2 inch wide, about 1/10 of an inch thick, and the same length as my blade, which is 4 3/4 inches. Now I'm going to mark about 1/8 of an inch down from the top in the center on either side of the handle pieces. Now I'm going to center punch each of those dots. Okay, I probably should have talked about this before, but I completely forgot. So if you take a right angle tool and align your handle pieces up into here, it will align one side of them. And as I was cutting them out, I realized that the measurements weren't perfect. So as you can see, these lines, the tops of them are not aligned, therefore the holes are not aligned, which I realized after I center punched the holes. But this isn't too big of a deal. We can line them up. This is a very delicate process. Like the line of best fit. Now I'm cutting off the ends of the 2 handle pieces that were a little bit longer than the other ones. Now as you can see, the tops of them are aligned, and as well as the holes on both ends of each handle piece. Now I'm going to drill out each hole out of each handle piece. The drill bit I'm going to be using is going to be the one that's just a little bit bigger than these. It'll be able to go through and spin freely. Now I'm going to finally cut off the end of this. Now I'm going to, where's the center of the screen? Now I'm going to assemble parts. Now since these aren't rounded out yet, they can't move. So after you round them out, they will be able to move, but that's it as of right now. Okay, so since the blade is made out of 1 1/4 inch wide steel, I need to cut 1/8 of an inch off the back and on the tips of this. Just cut off 1/8 of an inch off either side of here so that it's flush with either side of the handle when it's put together, because both of the handles put together is 1 inch wide, since each handle is 1/2 inch wide. The sides of this steel that the blade's made out of is 1/8 of an inch wider on either side, so I need to cut that off the back so that this is perfectly flush. As you can see, it's not. There's the bump right there. This next part is a little bit complicated, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. Take two of the handle pieces and fling them outwards like this so that two of them are like this. I think you'll get it in a second. Make sure that the back side of the blade, or where's the blade? The back side of the blade here is perfectly in line with this side of the handle. You might have to eye it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It'll still be functional. Just this is going to determine whether your blade, you know, when it's fully extended out, that it's in line with the handles. Make sure it's parallel. Put a clamp on there and put it on both of the handles. Figured that it's probably a lot easier to do in the vise. So I have it clamped up in the vise with a piece of leather just to make sure that neither of the handles move. It just kind of disperses the weight or like tension in the vise on both of the handles. And now as you can see, the side of the handle and the blade are in line. So now I'm going to drill through that hole, and then that will create the spaces in the handles for the pin. So I'm going to drill in that hole with the same drill bit that I used to drill that hole. And you can see the little blockage in there, which is the handles. Now as you can see right there, the handles now have that little divot in them, which perfectly surrounds the hole for the pin. Now I'm just going to use that same exact technique to do that on both sides of each handle, on every handle. Okay, so now I have all the pin divots put in each of the handles, and I put some pins in, but they are a little bit too long right now, so I'm going to cut each pin to the width of this so it's just flush with the handles on either side. It just makes it look a lot nicer. And then I'm going to use some super glue to hold them in, or if you have a welder, I would definitely suggest that, or maybe soldering them, but super glue works for me. Maybe a tiny little bit of epoxy will work. So I trimmed down the threaded bolts to the thickness of the entire balisong, and then put them through halfway so that there's equal amount sticking out either side, and then I put some super glue around them, and the super glue will go down through the threads and then harden and expand, and it will hold these in place. So now I just need to let them dry. Okay, so I put in the spacers, which is just another set of bolts, a nut in between the handles, and then a nut on the outside. When making spacers, the spacer should be just a little bit thicker, like the tiniest little bit thicker, maybe 50% thicker, or maybe even 25% thicker than the blade that you're using, so that it doesn't get, you know, too stuck in there. It's not like really having to pinch to get in there, so that, you know, it'll fit in smoothly. But the pins are in now. All I need to do is grind those flush, and then finish off, cut off those bolts, and then finish the joint pins. As of right now, it's working. Just need to put on some touches so that it works better. Probably going to round that off a lot closer to this pin here, cut off this excess here, fix the points on here, make them a little nicer, and then polish it, maybe put on some scales. Actually, I thought about it a little more, and I want to get rid of a good amount of weight on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to center punch about 4 holes on the two handle pieces and then drill all the way through to the other handle piece and go all the way through.